Hey y'all, welcome as we continue through the book of 1 Samuel together. And today we are going to be reading from 1 Samuel chapter 9. Samuel led the nation into a time of revival and turning back to the Lord. However, toward the end of Samuel's life on this temporary earth, the people in God's nation once again rejected the Lord and asked Samuel to give them a human king. Under the Lord's guidance, Samuel properly warned them that they would not be happy with the rules and deeds that went along with having an earthly king rule over them. Regardless, the nation demanded a king and they wanted their king right now. This chapter switches focus and introduces us to Saul. He was hot to trot, and he stood a whole head taller than anyone else in Israel. He would have been easy to spot and easy to look at. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, who was almost exterminated because of their rebellion against the laws of God. In the book of Judges, we read about that. In spite of being from the smallest tribe of Israel, he was part of a powerful and wealthy family who owned real estate and animals. We are about to learn that Saul was tall, he was good looking, he was strong, and he was the kind of king that the people in the nation would likely admire. We are also about to see that Saul was obedient to his father, and he was concerned about his father's feelings. He was persistent in wanting to obey his father's will, and he was not a quitter. There was a certain amount of modesty in Saul. However, we will be given no indication of his spiritual life. Physical qualities and personal character is no guarantee of spiritual character and spiritual qualities. We'll go ahead and start in verse 1 of chapter 9 together. There was a wealthy, influential man named Kish from the tribe of Benjamin. He was the son of Abiel, son of Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, of the tribe of Benjamin. His son Saul was the most handsome man in Israel, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the land. One day Kish's donkey strayed away, and he told Saul, "Take a servant with you and go look for the donkeys." So Saul took one of the servants and traveled through the hill country to Ephraim, the land of Shalisha, the Shalim area, and the entire land of Benjamin, but they could not find the donkeys anywhere. Finally they entered the region of Zuph, and Saul said to his servant, "Let's go home. By now my father will be more worried about us than the donkeys." But the servant said, "I've just thought of something. There is a man of God who lives here in this town. He is held in high honor by all the people because of everything he says. Everything he says comes true. Let's go find him. Perhaps he can tell us which way to go." "But we don't have anything to offer him," Saul replied. "Even our food is gone, and we don't have a thing to give him." "Well," the servant said, "I have one small silver piece. We can at least offer it to the man of God and see what happens." In those days, if people wanted a message from God, they would say, "Let's go and ask the seer," for prophets used to be called seers. "All right," Saul agreed. "Let's try it." So they started into the town where the man of God lived. As they were climbing the hill to the town, they met some young women coming out to draw water. So Saul and his servants asked, "Is the seer here today?" "Yes," they replied. "Stay right on this road. He is at the town gates. He has just arrived to take part in a public sacrifice up at the place of worship. Hurry and catch him before he goes up there to eat. The guests won't begin eating until he arrives to bless the food." Saul's home was in Gibeah, which is about 5 miles from Ramah, where Samuel lived. Yet Saul had no idea there was a man of God named Samuel living in Ramah. All of Israel was supposed to know this, but somehow Saul had missed the memo, and he only lived 5 miles from him. So I'm not sure how, but regardless, he did not receive this notification. This suggests a few things. First, it seems that Saul lived and farmed with his family, and he really minded his own business. It also implies he likely didn't attend the annual feast and wasn't too greatly concerned about spiritual matters. Like many people today, he simply lived his life and didn't make knowing the Lord a vital priority. An extremely insignificant event brought Saul and Samuel together. I love how the Lord works through the smallest details in in and through our lives. Saul was sent to find donkeys that had wandered off and had gotten lost. The animals were indeed valuable, of course, and they were later found and returned to Kish, we're about to see. Only the Lord would call Israel's first human king through lost donkeys. Since they couldn't find the donkeys, they decided to go find the man of God that Saul's servants had heard of and simply go see what happens. I love the let's just go see what happens testimonies that we read about throughout the scriptures. What Saul didn't know was that the Lord had told Samuel the previous day that Saul, from the specific tribe of Benjamin, would be visiting him. This was a God-ordained meeting, not a simply by chance occasion. They arrived at the gates of Ramah in the evening because the ladies were going out to draw water. They asked the ladies about Samuel, and they were very happy to respond in a very long and very detailed answer. Perhaps they wanted to talk with Saul as long as possible on the account of his rico, suave, noticeably handsome appearance. Regardless, the ladies had plenty of words and gave them very detailed directions. We'll go ahead and continue in verse 14. So they entered the town, and as they passed through the gates, Samuel was coming out toward them to go up to the place of worship. Now the Lord had told Samuel the previous day, "About this time tomorrow I will send a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him to be leader of my people Israel. He will rescue them from the Philistines, for I have looked down on my people in mercy and have heard their cry." When Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said, "That is the man I told you about. He will rule my people." Just then Saul approached Samuel at the gateway and asked, "Can you please tell me where the seer's house is?" "I am the seer," Samuel replied. "Go up to the place of worship ahead of me. We will eat there together, and in the morning I'll tell you what you want to know and send you on your way. And don't worry about those donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, for they have been found, and I am here to tell you that you and your family are the focus of all of Israel's hopes." Saul replied, "But I'm only from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel, and my family is the least important of all the families of that tribe. Why are you talking like this to me?" Then Samuel brought Saul and his servant into the hall and placed them at the head of the table, honoring them above the 30 special guests. Samuel then instructed the cook to bring Saul the finest cut of meat, the piece that had been set aside for the guest of honor. So the cook brought in the meat and placed it before Saul. "Go ahead and eat it," Samuel said. "I was saving it for you even before I invited these others." So Saul ate with Samuel that day. When they came down from the place of worship and returned to town, Samuel took Saul up to the roof of the house and prepared a bed for him there. At daybreak the next morning, Samuel called to Saul, "Get up! It's time you were on your way." So Saul got ready, and he and Samuel left the house together. When they reached the edge of town, Samuel told Saul to send a servant on ahead. After the servant was gone, Samuel said, "Stay here, for I have received a special message for you from God." Samuel just happened to appear just as Saul and his servant entered the city. The day before, the Lord had told Samuel that Saul was coming to Ramah, so he prepared to meet him, and he gave him the Lord's message. I'm sure Samuel wasn't super thrilled about all of this, all things considered, but regardless of his feelings or his will, he humbly and obediently followed the Lord's will. The Lord knows best. We simply do not. No matter how much we think we do, the Lord knows better. Things always go best when we surrender to the Lord wholeheartedly with everything in us. The flesh doesn't care about eternity because the flesh is not going with us into eternity. We will get new bodies in eternity. And this is why sin looks so appealing to us this side of heaven. We need to intentionally crucify our flesh daily and surrender our wills, our hearts, our souls to the Lord wholeheartedly. The Lord has eternity in mind, and he wants us in it with him. Our flesh doesn't really care. It just wants comforts. When Saul appeared, the Lord spoke again to Samuel and confirmed that this was indeed the man of his choice, and that Samuel should indeed anoint him as Israel's first king. The Lord would use Saul, as he did Samson, to begin to weaken the Philistines and prepare them for David's kingship and final conquest of this enemy, which we're going to see when we get to 1 Chronicles chapter 18. Samuel's immediate and strong response to Saul had to have shocked his sandals off. In one introductory encounter, Saul discovered that he was speaking to the very man that he had been looking for. He further told them that they would be feasting together, that Samuel had a special message for him, and oh yeah, those missing donkeys, by the way, they've been found and they've already been returned to his father. Israel wanted a king, and they were about to get their king. Saul didn't understand what Samuel was saying, though I'm sure he was in a bit of shock. I mean, he went to find donkeys. He sought out a man of God to help him find those donkeys, and now he is finding out, or about to find out, that he is about to be crowned as king of the nation of Israel. When Samuel told Saul about his calling of the Lord on his life, that he had a special message and a special plan for him, he argued that this could not be true because he was from the smallest tribe, Benjamin. The nation shouldn't put their hope in him because he's nothing. This was the tribe that had almost gotten completely wiped out, which we learned about at the end of the book of Judges. He is essentially saying that he is not good enough and there should be no hope placed in him for the task at hand. His focus is entirely on himself, not on the Lord. Saul looks good and he seems humble. However, this isn't real, true humility. Humility is not the same as insecurity, and we should not confuse the two. Humility is God-focused, while insecurity is self-focused. We are told to humble ourselves, surrender before the Lord, and follow His will, not fumble around in our own selfish insecurities. We are to remain laser-focused on the Lord, not ourselves. The spotlight is to be kept on Jesus, not us. Samuel rightfully ignored Saul's protest that he's nobody and escorted him and his servant to the banquet hall for the planned feast. Saul stayed with Samuel for that evening, and the following morning Samuel called out to Saul to get up because it's time to get going. There are times in life when the Lord calls us to wait, and there are other times when He calls us to get up and get going. And we need to spend time with the Lord and know His voice, heeding His direction and guidance. He knows what is best, and He has our best in mind. It is up to us to choose to humbly surrender and follow Him with everything in us, heart and soul, with all of our guts, and not let our fleshly selves and insecurities get in the way of the Lord's will and the Lord's plan. I have had to lay my insecurities down repeatedly before the Lord and repent for being selfish and looking to myself instead of staying laser focused on the Lord. These are things that we struggle with, and the Lord knows that. He gives us grace, He gives us forgiveness, He gives us peace, He gives us comfort, strength, and confidence. And our confidence comes from Him by being laser focused on Him and His word, not from ourselves. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.